Today, I'm talking to PepsiCo's Senior VP and Chief Design Officer, Mauro Porcini. Recruited 5 years ago to help spread design thinking at PepsiCo, Mauro is the first to hold the position of Chief Design Officer. He champions design-led innovation at PepsiCo and on the global design stage, and recent innovations spearheaded by him include new premium bottled water, Life Water, and new vending machine, Hello Goodness, stocking better-for-you snack choices. So welcome, Mauro.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Likewise. So first of all, I wanted to start off by asking you about your role. You've been in it for 5 years. How have you seen the role of design evolve over the last 5 years in PepsiCo?
Well, design in PepsiCo didn't exist before I arrived as a function, but obviously the company was investing in design in a variety of different ways. What we are trying to do with design in-house inside the organization is to use our way of thinking as a community, what we call often design thinking, to identify new opportunities for the future of this company. Starting with understanding society, the world, where the world is going, understanding what is relevant for people today and in the future, understanding what is relevant for the company, for our business model, our culture, our processes, and then trying to imagine, dream, and then create and execute the products and the brands of the future. So design for us is a mix between innovation, understanding what are going to be those products and brands of the future, and then brand building 2.0, leveraging design and the design of every touch point of the brand to engage in a meaningful way, in a relevant way, people with our products and brands of today.
So in the way that you've done that in terms of creating such a strong in-house design team, that is, strikes me as being a kind of a very unique way of modernizing the in-house design team potential and power that perhaps in the past has not been so strong. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on the relationship that you are building between your internal design team and external designers in terms of building the brands in the way you've just described?
Yeah, well, design is something somehow new to these corporations, and design leverage at 360 degrees in depth at its full potential, I think is new in general for the business world, with the exception of very few markets, businesses where design was the key competitive advantage. For instance, the fashion world or the lighting world or the furniture world. And this is what is changing everything. So that's where design can play a very important role. Design is all about understanding, once again, what is relevant to people, what is relevant to the company, and then leveraging the tools that we have as a community, our ability to prototype and storytell, to accelerate the process of innovation, make it more efficient, and mostly increasing the quality of the thinking and the quality of the output by using our ability to prototype to connect all the different functions inside the organization around an idea and enable them to co-create with us. Essentially, design has become the glue, the connector, the facilitator, the cultural interpreter among all the different functions to drive solutions that are meaningful to people. Now, if this is true, these kind of functions need to be in-house, because the old model was a model where you were buying a good idea from an agency, and the good idea was at least a good idea for the society. We have amazing design firm out there that can really come up with very, very good ideas, understanding society sometimes even better than these corporations, understanding their consumers even better than these corporations, because they have a different point of view or different accesses to these consumers and these people. Sometimes on top of it, they were even understanding what would be relevant to the company. But the reality is that that idea, that most of the time was taken by this organization and killed within the organization. And it was, a blaming game was starting, the company blaming the firm not to do the right thing, not really understanding the company, the firm blaming the company of killing anything that is disruptive or different or new. But the reality is that innovation is really about how to take that idea and protect it all the way to the launch, to the market. And our model, at least, is an hybrid model where we work in-house, but we work always with many, many, many different kind of design firms for a variety of different reasons. We need different point of views. We need bandwidth. We need specific expertise that is more convenient and better to get access to through design firms than to build in-house. So there is an opportunity, I think, for everybody in our community. It's just a matter of understanding that the world is changing, and these corporations need to build extraordinary teams of design in-house. So you need extraordinary talents to join our world and this new challenge that we have as corporations, not just PepsiCo, any big corporation or small startup and enterprise, and then build a partnership with external agencies and firms to really together as a community help the business world leveraging design for growth and innovation.
That's great. That's a really good illustration of, I think, of how you describe your design thinking that you are bringing to PepsiCo. So you've been here 5 years in this role, and you've been putting in place this model. You must have seen some progress. Are you able to measure the design thinking impact that you're bringing to PepsiCo?
It's very difficult. Even before PepsiCo, I was tasked with the definition of an ROI for design already at 3M, my previous company. And already back then, I built this model to somehow build awareness about the value that we build, that we create. So essentially, first of all, you cannot isolate the design function or design variable from anything else. So it's not about what is the value that those X people bring to the company or that function brings to the company, but what is the value that a company design-driven can build for the top line and bottom line. Because at the end of the day, you want to sell and you want to make profit. That's the ultimate metric. And it cannot be applied just to one product, but it needs to be applied to the entire portfolio under a brand. So once again, the first most important variables at the end of the day are the financial one. But then on top of them, there are others that are almost enablers of the financial one. If you do right those things, you will get the financial one right. The first one is customer relation. The way we are leveraging design to build a partnership and a different dialogue with almost all of our customers is impressive. And this is really changing the game on how we can drive innovation within those kind of channels. The second one is value for the consumers. And again, you can measure it, or it could be simply observed by seeing how the consumer is talking about your products and brands, for instance, in social media. So you can have a feeling for that just by reading the social media, observing social media. Then impact on brand, we measure that. So it is the impact on the brand equity, brand I love, and so on and so forth, different kind of variables for each brand. Is the impact on our ability to do innovation, and is quality of the ideas, number of ideas that get to market, and speed, efficiency, therefore, of the process. Then there is and then there is our impact on, from a media standpoint. So how influencers, media are talking about us as a company. So it's more of a company kind of value. On top of it, and it's very important, when people think design, they always think about additional cost, adding cost to the product. The reality is that there are a series of productivity gains as well. We are able to eventually decrease the cost of product, keeping the same perceived quality and quality most of the time, or we can eventually increase the cost of the product to create exponential perceived quality or quality into the product. We can decrease the cost of the process both for ideation as well as for manufacturing. We measure how we scale up ideas in a more efficient way. So essentially using design thinking, our ability to prototype, to speed up the lift and shift of an idea that starts in a country around the world, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, again, that's a great answer for those that say, that don't know how to measure design thinking and the impact that design thinking brings. You actually listed about 5 or 6 really tangible things. So that's great that you do that, but I do agree that the overall impact can be sensed and felt. And so in those 5 years, what you're saying is that seems to be recognized now within the organization, which is a huge organization. There's something like 260,000 people work for PepsiCo. So you're saying that's now beginning to drift through the internal.
Yeah, and this is my answer to your question. You need proof points as soon as possible within the organization. Our proof points at the beginning of this journey in PepsiCo have been the redesign of Pepsi, what we call Big Ball Blue, and then the work on equipment with the Spire machine family, Spire fountains, so these smart fountains. Both projects have been very successful from a variety of different standpoints. When you start to build these quick wins, these proof points, then the organization see it and they want to have more and more and more. It's like fire, just exponentially spread across the organization. So that's really, really important when you build a new culture.
Great. Yeah, there's often been in the past, I think, an inbuilt resistance to change, which is ironic really, because design is all about change and you're being asked to change things, modernize things, be part of a society and culture which is radically transforming, as you described earlier. And yet when people see change, it can be quite frightening for them, and so the natural reaction is to reject, as you say. But to overcome that within a big organization is no mean feat, so it's great. I want to move on and talk about health now, because it's a big issue globally, consumers' health. And it seems like you are taking, and PepsiCo are taking consumers' health really seriously with the launch of Hello Goodness. Does, therefore, design thinking have an increasingly important role in helping shape social values around health and beyond that?
If you think, I always compare design to other functions. If you think about what makes a professional R&D person happy, is really to produce a patent or an invention or a technological innovation that nobody ever did before. As a scientist going to work, that's your dream, your career advanced because of that. If you're a marketer or somebody in the business world, is all about business growth or eventually building amazing, iconic brands. But if you are a designer, think really what drives us is to put something in the hands of people that is cool, that is relevant, that is meaningful, that can change the world. So by definition, we are the advocates of people in this corporation or in the world in general. Marketers eventually are the advocates of brands and business, and R&D the advocates of technology. So if this is true for our community, then it's obvious that we're driven by doing something that makes sense for people. And sometimes, people are aware of it, they know what they want, and they're very vocal about this. Sometimes they have unarticulated needs that they're not even aware of, and that we need to somehow imagine, and then we need to craft solutions for them, and then offer them to them. And you need to do it in the right time, in the right context, so it's not that easy. It's extremely complex. So, long story short, we are people in love with people and want to do the right thing for them today and in the future. And that's why, as designers, a design community, by definition, we want to create healthier products and solutions for them.
Okay, so this link between culture and creativity, which is what we're talking about, because there's many themes that are vibrant in culture at the moment. It is reflected, I think, in one of your recent innovations, which is the designs for Life Water. They feature evolving designs and the work of female artists and support culturally relevant themes. So are we going to be seeing more of this kind of thing in the future? And what other ways does PepsiCo want to build the link between its brands and culture?
Usually I say as designers, we, by creating experiences for people across product categories and geographies, we add moments of fun or style or convenience, of security, of health into the life of people. Everything we're surrounded from is designed by somebody. My jacket, this mic, my shoes, my food and beverage, there is a designer behind. And so if we are all united by doing something that add value, and again, value could be, once again, depending on the category, it could be a moment of fun or a moment of safety or many other things. Then all these little moments are fragments of a broader social happiness. So as a community, we can really create something positive for the world, increase the level of happiness in the world. Now, so that should be our goal. These brands and this corporation give us now the stage to do more and more of this. Now, I think our primary goal needs to be the one of doing it through our core products. You design something, make sure that add that kind of value to the life of people. But then we also have an opportunity to carry other kind of messages. It's very tricky because we need to be very balanced. We need to really understand what is our role. We don't want to do too less, but we don't want to do too much. And so what is the fine balance is something that we need to define. I think Life Water is a wonderful example of taking a product platform that is relevant to people, like hydration, and using it to push a positive cultural message into the society, leveraging, by the way, a need of people that is the one of carrying brands with them that somehow talk about their mind status, their passions, who they are. And so combining that specific kind of need of people with a product platform that by definition makes more sense today for people, like the hydration platform, with a message that is relevant to them, essentially we found a really interesting proposition for people that's been very successful so far in the market. And we want to for sure do more of this.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to seeing those kind of innovations. And let's just return to the theme of innovation for a second. I read somewhere that you talked about we're living at a point where there's this kind of tremendous opportunity coming from the collision of technology and creativity and social media. Tremendous opportunities are sort of exploding everywhere. But just elaborate a little bit more on the kind of that particular theme, how particularly tech innovation and social media are impacting on design.
Well, the impact on brands is that we're moving from a model where a company like PepsiCo will craft a message and impose it top-down through television, mostly, to a recipient, a consumer, to a world where we're not even the actors of this conversation anymore. We are the topic of the conversation of people talking about us. So we're moving from a world where we're buying the right to be part of the conversation to a world where we need to earn the right to be part of the conversation. And this is where design plays a very, very important role, because it becomes so important to activate those brands eventually offline to be part of that online ongoing conversation. So you need to really understand how to redesign your product, your packaging, what happened in retail, what happened in hospitality, what happened in the events where we activate, in our case, like music, sport, art, fashion, and so on and so forth, to be a relevant part of the conversation. And as I say often, we don't compete even anymore just with other food and beverage brands, but eventually we compete with the latest song of Beyoncé or the latest cell phone or of Apple or Samsung. Is competition for relevance in the mind of people, in the life of people. And then finally, you get easy access to funding through technological solutions like Kickstarter.com, all the way to the proliferation of these funds that are searching for new ideas and startups. You have talking about technological innovation, low-cost manufacturing is lower and lower, and 3D printing will take, this to the next level. So you will be able not just to come up with an idea at home and eventually build an ecosystem of communication at home, but eventually you will be able to produce your idea at home.
Amazing.
So this is going to change things even more. And then I just mentioned it, low-cost access. There is no barrier anymore to build that system of communication. So all of this is changing completely the way these companies are doing brand building and innovation. And design can play a very, very important role to identify solutions that are meaningful to people, to create a communication that is as authentic as possible, and to do it in a very efficient way and a fast way, in a frequent way within the company.
Yeah. We'll return to speed in a minute. Many people would say that design and innovation are separate things, but you made a big statement saying that they are the same thing. So is that because you feel that design is about creating the new and therefore that is innovation, or is it something different? Could you just explain why you think they are the same?
People that are able to leverage all the different disciplines, the key ones, technology, business, and then human beings, essentially desirability, viability, and feasibility, to build solutions for people. There is not education in the planet. It's not business school, it's not R&D school, it's the only one that formed this. That is what innovation is about. Innovation is about understanding what is relevant to people, what we call empathy, is understanding what is relevant to the company, is the strategy, and then using the ability to prototype to craft solutions that make sense to the company and to the people. By the way, I just listed the 3 key components of what we call design thinking.
And design, as you said, is the link between the two. Now, you've been talking a lot about speed and the importance of being fast and innovating fast, and we all know the world is getting quicker and quicker. But I also feel that there's a point where if you go too fast, you can stumble and fail and make a mistake. So I suppose the question I've got for you is about the relationship between being so fast that you can make mistakes. Is that a good thing? Or are we just on an exponential kind of curve of speed just to get things out to market? What's your relationship? How do you reconcile the relationship between speed of innovation and the potential to make mistakes as we get faster?
Yeah. I'll give you 2 answers to this. First of all, it's not just about speed, but it's about polarizing the speed that there is inside the organization. We need to go slower in certain areas and really dedicate the right time, resources. And those are areas where we have the opportunity to build the biggest barrier to the entrance. Most of the time I'm talking about technological innovation. So if we can invest in R&D, in technology, to build something that is totally disruptive, for that kind of innovation, you need time. It's just by definition. There are other areas where you just need to move fast. One of the problems of these companies, often they're trapped. They're in the middle. They're not fast enough or they're not slow enough. So let's define the 2 kind of projects, and then let's really either be very fast and lean, so move really in a very nimble way, or just place big bets. You need both. So that was the first point. The second point is that we live in a world where no matter what, competition is moving very fast. There is a proliferation of new entrants, and so is a need to find ways to understand what people want and craft solutions and place them in the hands of people, and then let them decide if this is good or not for them. I come from a technology-driven company like 3M, and in the science community, it was renowned that to arrive to one innovation, you needed to do thousands and thousands of experiments. Now, in branding, in marketing, those experiments are called mistakes or failure. But if we change vocabulary and we change mindset and we say, you know what, to do innovation, I need to do experiments. Obviously, I need to control the impact of those experiments, the risk, but I need to do those experiments. So if I launch multiple products and brands in the market, I expect many of them to fail, but maybe it's not a failure. Let's call them experiments, and then few will give us the learning to then tweak, more and more new ideas and existing products, existing brands, or new ones, and finally arrive to the real innovation that can change the game.
What I'm finding as we go through this interview is that you're answering the questions I'm about to ask you, which and you've just done that, which was because I read somewhere that you said that we mustn't make mistakes because we are moving so fast. But I understood what you were meaning, that we have to move fast and therefore we have to kind of embrace that speed. And so the question was, how would you phrase risk and failure to be positive? And you've just done that by saying we need to see things as experiments, as creative experiments. And I think that's a really great way of kind of like describing that, the need to move fast and try things. And then maybe modify, fix them, or accept that they don't have a place, move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And to add to that, obviously you have an entire portfolio to play with. So there are areas where you should take those kind of risks and you should be ready to make certain kind of mistakes. There are others where you need to be, by definition, more efficient. And so it's also a matter of choosing how and where you want to play. The other thing is, you have anyway as a company a lot of pressure from a variety of different entities out there to not make those kind of mistakes. And so design thinking and our ability to prototype and our ability to enable different functions within the company and then customers and consumer to be part of the creative process and increasing the quality of what we do could be a tool to increase the ability to make less mistakes, and mostly to increase also the confidence that what you're doing is the right thing to do. This idea of confidence is extremely, extremely important in what we do every day. At the end of the day, entrepreneurship and innovation are risky by definition.
Yeah, cool. Now, I think you've pretty much explained to me how the whole role of people buying into brand experiences is central to your design and marketing strategy. But in order to create those experiences, one thing I wanted to just shift the question to was how you see the role of designers in terms of creating brand experiences. Do you think, for example, that the designer of today and tomorrow is going to have to be a bit of a DJ and mix the ability to design digitally, maybe be able to design packaging, think about social media? Do you think that's possible within the role of a modern brand designer, that they have to be thinking in that kind of a bandwidth now? Or do you feel in order to create a brand experience, you've got to apply different specialisms to that brand and it's your job to pull it all together?
The leaders in the three businesses, the design leaders in the three businesses, they need to have a very holistic approach to design. They need to understand how to orchestrate all the different aspects of design, phases of design, to build those experiences and to really help the marketing organization driving the brands and growing the brands. But then again, you need super expert in industrial design, super expert in digital, and so on and so forth, to then work on the specific aspect of it. But I think the message for all the younger designers, if you want to become the CDO of a company, or your role in your company, for instance, you need to have a very holistic approach to design today. In the past, you may have had the luxury of not doing it, but today where those products and brands are on stage 24/7 and they need to be authentic and the behavior of the brand needs to be coordinated across every touch point, that's not an option anymore. I mean, you need to have a very holistic approach to all the different touch points of the brand and to what design can do for the brand at 360 degrees.
Now, last question. We'll talk about the future now. You've talked about where you've come from and what you're doing. Let's talk about how you see the future at PepsiCo and design thinking within PepsiCo. What does it look like to you when you take design thinking, PepsiCo and culture for the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years? And is sustainability a big part of that?
Yeah, well, I partially answered to this earlier. I think designers have the amazing opportunity, and with that the responsibility of creating a world that is more sustainable from a visual standpoint, from an ecological standpoint, from a social standpoint. Why the opportunity and the responsibility? Well, because we are thinkers, but we're also doers. Through our ability to prototype during the process, we can really influence these big corporations or our small startups, all the way and everything in between, to do the right thing for the world. And we should do it. I think if we are all united as a community by this intent, by this goal, we can really create a better world, a more sustainable world, an happier world. In PepsiCo, we are experimenting once again in a variety of different ways. For instance, talking about sustainability, we launched in Brazil this new brand called Drinkfinity, that is essentially is a bottle that is reusable, and then you have a pod that you apply on the bottle. You put water inside the bottle, and then essentially this pod has two chambers, one with a liquid part and one with a solid part that mix together with the water, and you get your fresh drink in the moment. The pods are recyclable, the bottles are usable. So we are trying to experiment different kind of models, different kind of products. We started in Brazil with Drinkfinity. We're going to launch it also in other countries. It's an area obviously of focus for all of us.
Fantastic. Well, that's pretty much it. It's been a great interview, and it's, I think, a real pleasure to see how you're making a really big impact within a huge organization like PepsiCo. And we wish you all the best for continuing that success. And thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Thanks to you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.